Inoculating your child against violence. I'm going to give you my top 5 things I would look for in finding a good school for your child or even yourself. Stay tuned. Hi, I'm Shihan Marty Husband, and welcome to Shihan's Dojo. Today I'd like to share with you my top 5 ideas on what you need to look for when trying to send your child to a good martial arts school. It's probably one of the hardest things to do is to find a good school for your child, or one you can feel comfortable with. There are so many different types of martial arts, so many things you have to consider. What's good for my child? What am I looking for? But hopefully I can help you break this down a little bit right here. Kids today have a lot to face up to. And unfortunately, they have bullies to deal with, internet bullies, violence that happens everywhere. You know, we're not immune to it. It's a thing that humans have been doing for as far back as time itself. Let's look at it for instance. Are you with your child while they're at school? What happens when a bully picks on them? That's why you need to think about putting your kid into a good martial arts school. A good martial arts school is hard to find. In many cases, it's hard in some areas if you're in the country to even find one near you. Number 1 would be find a legitimate high-ranking school. Now, people say, well, what do you mean by high-ranking school? Well, that's a good question. There's a lot of taekwondo places and karate places that are really absolute frauds. They may have had people who did 1 to 2 years of training, and then they start giving lessons and opening up their own school, and they really don't know much of anything. You have to be careful there. You have to find instructors who can give you a good background, where they got their training and who trained their instructors. It's very important to pass on these knowledge, especially if you're doing a classical style, but I'm not so much talking just classical here. I'm talking about an instructor who's competent, maybe has certifications in physical education, understanding kids, just a generalized person who's respected in the community and knows what they're doing. Some schools may not even have rankings like in black belts, and that it depends what you're trying to find from martial arts, from boxing to you name it. But consider for a moment, if somebody hasn't had 10 years of training, why do they need to be teaching your child? And if they got a program whereby they can actually do it. Now, if there's a startup program, it happens. You don't know much about it, and you have to see how it works, especially if there's nothing in your area. But you have to be careful. When you go there for these high-ranking schools, make sure they're not trying to have you sign a contract for 2 years that you're going to pay an exorbitant amount of money, and they promise you a black belt in 2 years. You know, too many people get those kind of black belts and didn't really earn them. There's one thing to pay for it, and there's one thing to earn it. I mean, it's like going into 6th grade and paying somebody to get your high school diploma. Would you do that? And if you would, that scares me. Now, consider also when you're finding these instructors, make sure that they've got kind of an established background in martial arts. It could be 1 style, it could be 3 styles, it could be many styles. Make sure that they're still learning. And also, make sure that they've got senior students under them that if they're teaching, that they know what they're doing. They're not just putting somebody that's been in there 6 months to teach the kids and that how to do something. A lot of people today wouldn't know the difference, but find out when you go to find these schools, how long, these instructors, do they make them take an instructor's course? Personally, before I could teach, I had to go through several different little classes that my instructor made me do in order to teach and be with kids. Number 2, the environment. Is it a safe environment? Look around. Make sure that the floor is smooth. Maybe if they're doing a jiu-jitsu type of martial arts, that they've got tatamis, they've got mats, something soft for the kids to land on. Also, make sure they're not breaking boards. I've got a lot of schools out there that still think breaking boards is great. Now, think about this. Your kids are growing up, their bones are developing, and you want them to be breaking things? It's not a good idea. You need to find an environment where they're doing non-contact to light contact, especially at younger ages. I mean, when they get into teenage years, if they want to get into, some contact type of sports, that's up to them. But at a young age, they're still developing. You want that environment to be as safe as possible. I'm not saying that breaking boards is a bad thing for some styles, but in my instance, I have never seen any necessity for a child to break a board other than to make somebody feel good. Now, I realize that confidence is a matter, but your child's safety is important. Now, think about that also when they're doing free sparring. When they're in their ring environment and stuff like that, are they making them wear pads? All the safety equipment they need, chest protectors, cups, you name it. This environment may be fun, but it has to be just as safe. Yes, they may be in a non-contact, light contact, but remember, your kids will get hit once in a while. It happens. All right? There's no 100% guarantee nobody's going to get thumped. Some places to look maybe like would be your park environments. Some of them have them in your bigger cities and stuff. Some places are just local schools. Remember, understanding what you want for your child is just as important as picking that right environment. If they like tumbling and want to do jiu-jitsu, or if they want karate because they want to do karate for sport, or you want them to do it for self-defense, think of that. And that brings us to number 3. Number 3 is self-defense or sport. That's kind of a two-part question there. Do you want your kid in there for sport? Do you want them in there for self-defense? Now, don't get me wrong, self-defense is why I wanted my girls in there. But you still have a sporting aspect you should use. There are many types of trainings. First of all, when they start learning to block a punch and that's called static training. It's somebody's talking them through it and they're being as safe as possible. Next, they'll get into what is called like fluid training. Fluid training is where they'll say something and then not give a count, but they know it's coming and they'll block and they learn to handle themselves. Now, in the street, it would be called dynamic training, but you're not going to want your kid out there in the street trying his techniques to see if they work. That's where sporting comes in. In sport, the kids get in there, it's a safe environment, and they can learn timing, distance, reaction, confidence building. There's just so many things that they can learn, all right? And when you see that they're learning these little items, you'll see them come up with their dynamic training. In other words, they'll be able to apply these techniques if they ever have to use them for real. That's why sporting is there. Now, I'm a big advocate of saying, oh, be the winner. No. Karate is where everything is involved. You'll never fight anybody in a tournament that's higher ranked than you, much higher anyway, within a belt or two. And white belts aren't going to fight black belts. I mean, let's face it, you can't send somebody in there that's been there 6 months fighting somebody that's been there 10 years. It's not going to work. But that's not what happens in karate or most martial arts. Consider, if they're a purple belt, they go in and fight as a purple belt. If they're a white belt, they go in and go as a white belt. They do their katas, their forms. This is a confidence building process, besides helping them with the dynamics. Now make sure, if they're doing the sport aspect, that somebody's explaining to them the self-defense. I think far too often you find these dojos that are nothing but sport and fail to talk to the kids about stranger smart, how to defend against bullies. Oh, they'll give them some little line, oh, do this one technique. It doesn't always work that way. They've got to mentally be able to handle what's going on around them in life and legitimize what they're doing. Communication. That's number 4 on the list. If you look at communication, what I'm referring to is how does an instructor there talk to their students? Now, I don't like it, as in all my years of teaching, I don't like it when somebody talks baby talk to a kid. It really is annoying because they're growing up. They need to be talked to. Now, I'm not saying talk above their level and give them ideas or words that they can't understand. But when the instructor gets down there to communicate with them, do they get down, bend down on their knees, get down to the kid's eye level and talk to them? We build their confidence that way. When we're explaining things to them, we don't try to go overboard and show too much. All right? There are certain things that kids cannot understand. But I'll tell you what, they understand more when you talk to them like an adult. And what I mean when talking to them like an adult, I mean talking to them in a normal voice. That's what kids want in reality. They just want to be treated like a normal person. So make sure the communication is there, because that's the only way it's going to build confidence. If they feel like they're being talked down to, there will be no respect for what's going on. As a matter of fact, they might even just get annoyed and lose interest. Finally, let's talk about number 5, parent involvement. I would not want to ever take my child to a school like that in karate or tumbling, music, if I couldn't sit through and watch off to the side and see what my child is learning. That way I can be involved and have my kid know I'm there. That doesn't mean you have to stay every single day, but there's more to the parent involvement than what I'm asking. Like one of the things I used to do with my parents was I would have them come out and hold pads, kicking pads, hand pads, whatever, while I actually instructed the children on the other side of the pads to watch them better if they're punching it or kicking it, and just having a general overall fun. But that way the parents are involved to see how well the kids are learning, and it gives the kids something to look forward to. We all want our parents' approval. We always did as we were younger. But in this way, the parents are getting involved. Have them get involved. If you've got a nonprofit group that you're with, get involved with earning money to send the kids off to sporting events, or earn money to do trips, or bring in seminars. There are tons of great people out there I've had my children listen to that I've teach that do seminars, and the kids learn so much more. They can be giving you the exact same information you always do, but because they're new and special, the kid will learn more because they feel special. So there's a lot to this, and when you're considering a school, think about it for a moment. What does your child need? And, consider also, is this right for our lifestyle? A lot of people don't realize it's an involvement. You either do it or you don't, all right? It's like basketball, baseball, and football, and all the little activities you do at school. When you start them, you're involved in them. All right? That's not to say in a year or two, if the kid doesn't like martial arts or doesn't like something else, he shouldn't go somewhere else or do something else. But what I am saying is, if they're good at it, they like it, don't force them to go do 100 things. Have them commit to it. It's like piano playing. You wouldn't say, okay, go a couple days here, and if you don't like it, it's not going to work. No. Allow them experience. See if they're being serious. Of all things, make sure they're serious. And make sure they're having fun. If they're not having fun, they're losing out on a lot of things. And I'll cover some stuff in the later videos on how people learn and the psychology of that. Because students learn by playing. And it's very important that they're able to play a little bit, not just be seriously doing active punching all the time. See if the instructors out there are making games for them. See if they're, the games are usually built on techniques and stuff that they're learning, like kicking the pad, running, or, some cases we do like grabbing the child's arm, have them kick the pad, when we let go, they'd run away. So there's lots of little things you can see. Make sure it's, like I said, these 5 things. So, if you like what you saw here, hey, hit that subscribe button right down there and punch into that bell so we can notify you when we have new videos. We'll be doing a lot more things on children, teaching children. We'll be doing a lot more things on adults getting into the martial arts. We'll be doing so many things, and we're also going to be teaching so many advanced ideas and principles here that, we want to help you grow as martial artists and as people. Martial arts is not just a sport. It's a way of life. It's a way of thinking. And I hope that we can share that with you. Thank you for your valuable time, and we'll see you next time.